we might as well just carry on with Rod Donald, please.
All right, thank you. So I'll invite Paul McNoe to the table. Paul is one of our trustees of the Rod Donald Banks Peninsula Trust, and I also bring apologies this evening from our co-chairs, Richard Suggett and Jen Chwaniak. So thank you for the opportunity to submit on the 2023-24 draft annual plan. We certainly value the opportunity to provide feedback both in writing and at this meeting this evening. And the first thing I'd like to do is to acknowledge with thanks and with appreciation the funding that is in the long-term plan and is still in the long-term plan through this annual plan for biodiversity. You've got 400,000 there. The funding to Pest-Free Banks Peninsula, 65,000, and the operational and capital funding for the Rod Donald Trust as well. These are all, again, groups that are largely voluntary in nature. All of our trustees are volunteers. The Pest-Free Banks Peninsula group, a huge amount of volunteer work there, and having the funding that you provide is so important to that work being able to be done. The only suggestion I would make in terms of funding is that I believe that could be better coordinated with funding from Environment Canterbury and possibly from other sources for similar purposes. So there's possibly a way that some of that funding could be better coordinated, but the key message is we appreciate it and we're pleased to see it continue at current levels. We would suggest that there might be an opportunity to look at increasing some of that funding in a more coordinated way as you look to the long-term plan next year. Now, Council in 2019 declared a climate and ecological emergency. Your strategic directions tell us that meeting the challenge of climate change through every means possible is one of your key goals. It therefore comes as some surprise that climate change doesn't figure to any great degree in the annual plan. There's a 350,000 Environmental and Climate Change Partnership Fund, but of course, in comparison to your overall budget, that is very much a small amount. The point here is that you've got the climate resilience strategy, you've got these key strategic statements. What's required is appropriate funding to deliver real actions and outcomes in this area. Whether any of that is capable of being increased through the annual plan is a question, but certainly maybe putting some funding or resource aside in the annual plan to allow for development of greater funding opportunities for climate change, ecology, pest control through the long-term plan is something that we believe that you should consider. My next topic is ecological restoration. The Port Hills and Banks Peninsula carry huge opportunity for ecological restoration initiatives. These need to focus on planting native trees rather than, for example, pine plantations, exotic plantations. Council has a biodiversity strategy, which should cover and does cover a lot of this work, and I would suggest that you need to refer to that biodiversity strategy when looking at how best to fund and partner in these ecological restoration initiatives. If Environment Canterbury were, as part of their long-term plan, to propose a targeted rate for biodiversity, supporting that would be one good position that this council could take. I was in a hearings meeting at ECAN the other day where this matter came up, and I believe there's a real possibility that there could be an opportunity for you to support the Regional Council in a targeted rate of that nature through the long-term plan process. We are grateful for the work done by the Council on the Little River Rail Trail, particularly at the city end and the Little River end. And we would encourage that appropriate funding and resource be made available to continue quality maintenance at both the city and Little River ends of the Little River Rail Trail. We don't have cycleways on Banks Peninsula in the same way that the major cycle routes exist in the city, but certainly maintenance of Little River Rail Trail is one way that Council can contribute to cycling on Banks Peninsula through that key recreational access route. My final point relates to the head-to-head walkway, which is a project that's been around for far longer than I've been around. And we've seen varying degrees of progress over the years. This came up in your draft long-term plan decision-making meeting, and we're pleased to see that the 1.9 million in the long-term plan for the walkway remains there, and we appreciate that. We're also aware of the proposal to defer some of this funding in the annual plan, but we are encouraged by the resolution that was passed at your annual plan meeting in February. 1.9 million remains in the head-to-head walkway budget across the long-term plan, and staff will work with the Rod Donald Trust and the local councillor to accelerate the delivery of the programme. Well, conversations between myself and manager of the trust, and the local councillor are very much alive and well. We have a plan to deliver this. The Rod Donald Trust has formally offered to partner in this project, subject to appropriate partnership arrangements being in place. And I'm very pleased to reiterate that offer this evening. We stand ready to partner and to play a leading role in this project so that in this triennium of council, we can make some real progress. Thank you once again for the opportunity to speak to our submission. I'm happy to take any questions.
I had no idea so many words could come out of someone's mouth in 10 minutes. You've done a very good job. Now, we've only really got, I'll just do time for one question. Aaron, thanks, because we are running.
Yeah, just on the head-to-head walkway, Andrew, how much has been spent so far?
I'm not sure what the original budget was and how much has been spent. I know that budgets have been deferred and reduced over many years, and that was for a number of good reasons. Earthquakes certainly was one of them,
because
and COVID was another.
The active travel levy that came in 2013 was put in there to fund the head-to-head walkway and the cycleways. Most people think it's just the cycleways, but the head-to-head walkway was put in there by the local councillor at the time. And so it will be interesting to see how much funding's gone towards that so far from that levy.
And that's the case. That was in the 2000, and you're absolutely right, that was in the 2010 term of council, when the levy was put on the budget for the major cycleways programme. There was also a component of that was to fund the head-to-head walkway. I've never been successful in seeing a reconciled budget of what's been collected under that particular rate and where it's been spent. That may be a way that you could justify some additional funding if it was needed, or certainly look at what has been spent and what we need in this next period to deliver.
Phil, could we add that to the briefings list, or an update, or a memo, or something?
So all actions are being
Cool, thank you.
taken.
Thank you. And because it's Tyrone's area,
Real quick, Phil. So just regarding the head-to-head walkway, so as I understand it, like again, there's a lot of resource, voluntary and otherwise, around Whakaraupa, Littleton Harbour, rearing to go, and however it can't be unleashed because there's kind of like a staffing resource bottleneck that is preventing that resource from being unleashed. Would that be a fair assessment in your understanding of it?
It would, and I can give a couple of examples of that. We've got the team at Living Springs ready to go with a proposal to take a part of the walkway across their land there. That's already been scoped and could easily be delivered with the right resource. And we've got community members at Charteris Bay in particular who, of their own volition, have worked with local property owners and worked on public land to create access and the beginnings of a walkway there. There are people on the other side of Littleton Harbour that have got some excellent ideas that with resource from council could be brought to fruition very, very quickly.
So not money, just staff time really, eh?
Staff time, and money for construction in the end, but staff time and resource in the beginning. I mean, the first thing that needs to happen is that the working party that was put in place by the community board needs to meet. Then a workshop needs to be held where I believe we can identify some low-hanging fruit. We need to spend the next year working up those proposals so that in the long-term plan there's sufficient capital funding to deliver those in the next 2 years.
it's brilliant. Thank you very much, Andrew. Thank you, Tyrone.